So I understand that some people are having trouble with cooking chicken. It's coming out rubbery. Eating rubbery chicken is kind of a culinary crime, so I thought I'd do a quick little blog and show you how to do this in a way that's lovely. So let's start with what we need. Went to the local butcher. Shout out to the Honest Butcher, our local organic guys. These chicken breasts, I've got boneless, skinless chicken breasts today, but you can use any part of the chicken you want. If you want to have the skin on or the bone in, then you could just cook it a little longer. And cooking is easier without the bones in it for the kind of cooking we're going to do. So I just want to show these to you. There are a couple of lovely chicken breasts. A couple of things about this that are really good. Because they're organic, why do we want to eat organic? So here we go, a couple of chicken breasts. You'll notice they're about the same size. The other thing about these that's really important is there's a presentation side, the side that we want everybody to see when we're finished serving it, and the side that probably is not as good to see. So this is the top of the chicken breast. It's nice and smooth. That's the side we want everybody to see. The underneath is basically from the inside part of that, not probably the best presentation. So when we're cooking, that's going to be important. We're going to start by putting the presentation side down in the pan. So after we flip it, the presentation side is the side that's showing. So you're going to see that when we do it. There we go. Nice, lovely organic chicken. Just give my hands a little wipe here for a second. So the other thing we're going to need, we need a pan. Now I use a heavy stainless steel pan. You can see it's nice and seasoned. This is from oil and stuff over a long period of time at high heat. That's okay. If I clean this off right down to the bare metal, it's actually going to taste like metal when I'm using it. So you want a certain amount of pan seasoning, just like when you have a cast iron pan. Cast iron pan works good. Big sort of Dutch oven that's heavy with a lid works fine. Any of that stuff is fine. We just really want a heavy pan. We're going to cook with high heat. Don't use a Teflon pan. Teflon pans are not made for high heat, and they'll give off chemicals that you don't want in your food, or get destroyed in the process in any event. So you want a heavy steel or iron, cast iron pan of some kind to do this particular kind of cooking. I happen to have a gas stove, which gives me a lot of control and high heat, but any old stove top will do. The other thing I want for my pan is some sort of splatter shield. Now you can use a lid, but if you're going to use a lid, you're going to want to put the lid part way off the pan so that we don't seal the pan when we're cooking. What we're trying to do here is roast the chicken, which means dry, hot air. We don't want moist air. That's steaming. And if we get that watery chicken from the store and we add a lid to the pan, all the water comes out and we're basically boiling the chicken, which leaves us with a pencil eraser. Nobody wants to eat a pencil eraser. So, splatter shield, pan. I'm going to need some kind of a spatula. In this case, I'm using a stainless steel spatula. And later on, we're going to need a sharp knife, a little bit of salt, and I'm going to use some virgin coconut oil for this cooking. You can use cooking spray if you want. I find this works really well. Be really careful about using things like olive oil, because at high heat it actually burns and becomes bitter. So this is pretty nice stuff. It's very healthy. Look it up. Virgin coconut oil. That's what we're going to use today. Okay, last thing we need is an oven. I happen to have a convection oven here, and we want it hot. So I've set it for 425 degrees Fahrenheit, which is really hot cooking. We want that. We're going to basically cook this chicken really fast. If you're not using a convection oven, go a little higher, like even maybe 450. Really crank the oven up. Make sure it's good and hot before you start. Convection oven, the only difference between convection and non-convection, convection oven circulates hot air, so things cook a little quicker. And for roasting, which we're doing now, that works really well. If you don't have a convection oven, no problem. Just go a little hotter, about 450 Fahrenheit, whatever that is in centigrade. Okay, here we go. So this is going to get a little noisy here because I'm going to turn on the fan to exhaust the air. So I'm going to keep my voice up for you. And I'm going to light the stove. And I have a nice big flame, and I want this pan to get nice and hot before we actually put the chicken in. So while that's going on, I'm going to season this. Always want to season your food. We don't want it to be bland. We don't want to go crazy either. So what I'm going to use today is actually smoked salt. So this is for the bacon lovers out there. A little bit of smoked salt gives a sort of bacon-like flavor. You want to be careful not to use pepper before you cook, because again, we're cooking with high heat and that pepper will burn, and you know, it gets kind of nasty if we burn the pepper when we're cooking. So you can add it later if you like. So I'm just going to season both sides of this chicken. And I'm just using a fork to flip this because it keeps my hands cleaner. It makes things move a little faster. And I'm going to add the oil to the pan. Now I'm measuring with a teaspoon, not a big heaping teaspoon, but I want basically a flat teaspoon of coconut oil. And we're going to let that melt, and it's going to happen pretty quickly because this pan is pretty hot now. So what we don't want is we don't want that oil to smoke. We want it so that it kind of gets legs on it. So as you move it around the pan, I don't think you can see that on camera, but as you move it around the pan, it'll kind of look like it's got little sort of waves or legs in it. That means it's getting hot. So time to put the chicken in. Now again, we're going to put it in presentation side down. So the side we want to see when we're done goes down in the pan. We're going to lay it, I'm going to lay it away from me because I don't want anything to splatter on me. And with these two pieces of chicken, I'm going to put them opposite of each other. So one is pointing one way and one is pointing the other, because I don't want them to be too crowded to each other. I want lots of gaps of air. You can hear that sizzle. It's exactly what we want. Now in my case, for me, I know that if I do this on one side at high heat on my stove for about 3 minutes, that's going to just seal, if you like, that one side of the chicken. It's also going to give it some really nice color, which we want. And I'm going to put a splatter shield on this now because it's going to start splattering and making a mess of the kitchen. Okay, last 20 or so seconds. So now what we're going to do, I've got my first 3 minutes. I'm going to flip this chicken, but I don't want the flame on the stove if you're using a gas stove, because the oil is being splattered in sort of micro particles, and it will flare up big time. We can get a big flame here. We don't want that. So I'm going to turn the stove off. Timer is off, and off comes the lid. And I'm going to give these one flip. And you can see here, really nice color on this. What I'm going to do, I want this to go into the oven. When you open the oven, don't stick your face in it or else you get your face burned. So, oven comes open, and then we'll get this in, closed. And in my case, the size of these chicken breasts, these guys are going to need about 10 minutes in addition to the 3 minutes we put on the stove. So, now I can turn off the fan. It's a little smoky in here, but nothing that's going to get us in trouble with the fire marshal. So now, I'm going to take my plate that had the raw chicken on it. I don't want that anywhere near the rest of my food. And we want to make some kind of appropriate veggies to go with this. So, given that we now have 9.5 minutes, that's a ton of time to prepare a little salad. So I'm going to do that while we wait. Why not? This is called Mosh, M-A-C-H-E, if you can get this. It's very interesting. It's a leafy green that sort of has a nutty flavor. And so you can see it almost looks like cress, watercress or something. I'm going to make a simple vinaigrette. I have a little shaker container, some Dijon mustard. So I'm going to start with some Dijon mustard, and I think I'm going to. I'm just going to shoot a little bit of Dijon mustard into the bottom of the container. And I happen to like rice vinegar, but any kind of vinegar or acidic thing like lime juice would work. I'm just going to put just a little bit in here. And then I'm going to add olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, and I'm going to put in about the same amount of olive oil as everything else. So I don't know if you can sort of see the line here. Now that's about 4 servings of salad dressing. I'm not going to use all of that, but I can put this in the fridge and say, put it away for the next one that I create. Use it next time. I'm just going to clean my hands up here a bit. So here's the container. We have about half of this is acid, so in this case vinegar, and the Dijon mustard is actually acid, and the top half is oil, and we want to make an emulsion. How do we make an emulsion? Give it a shake, and it comes out, it's like a smooth, almost, you can see, almost like a paste. Salad dressing done. Now I'm just going to put a bit of this in to my plastic container, about 1/4 of it, maybe 1/3. If you're measuring, be really careful about this one. Getting too much olive oil is a really easy way to get sneaky calories, so we want to manage the amount. And then I'm just going to snap a lid on my container, and I'm going to put a little bit of my exercise time in the gym to work, and give it a little run around like this. And what happens is I get perfectly dressed salad. Woo! Chicken comes out, and you can see it's a really lovely color. Now what I have to do, I have to get it out of the pan because I don't want it to keep cooking or else it'll dry out. But you can see here, there's no moisture around it. You can hear that sizzle, that's what we want. So I'm just going to pick that up. You notice I'm not having to fight with this to unstick it. Now we just have to let that rest, and it has to rest. It needs at least, I'd say, 3 minutes. What happens when you cook it, all the juices go to the center. If I was to cut it now, that would all run out and dry it out. So I want those juices to now sort of even out inside the chicken. Think of it like a sponge. All the water's in the middle of the sponge. If we let it sit, it'll kind of distribute out through the rest of it. And then when we're ready to serve this, it'll be fabulous. Now, a word about cutting. We want to cut on the bias, so we're not going to cut down and see how the knife is vertical. We're going to cut at an angle because it looks nicer. So here we go. I'm just going to pull this piece of chicken off the board, and we're probably a little early, but I'm just going to demonstrate this for you. Frankly, I'm hungry. So how do I measure? I'm not going to eat this whole thing. Pretty close. I'm using the palm of my hand as a measure, the way us good pianners will do. For me, that's about this much. I'm going to cut it at an angle. Right here. And you will see this piece of chicken, to prove to you how this works, cooked perfectly. Watch when I squeeze it. See the juices dripping out of it? Beautiful. Sealed on the outside, juicy on the inside, ready to go. So I'm just going to cut this on the bias, like this, with my knife. I'm going to take some of my salad, sorry, don't mind my hands, and we're going to try to sort of stack this salad up a little bit because we eat with our eyes. So I'm trying to get about 2 fists of salad here. If this was a post-workout meal, I wouldn't put any of that oily dressing on. I might just use a little bit of non-fat Greek yogurt or something because we don't want any fats. And I would add some carbohydrates. Maybe I'd have a chunk of sweet potato or something like that. And you basically have a post-workout meal. And I'll take my chicken and just lay it here and fan it out a little bit. If I wanted to put some pepper on, I can add a little pepper. And voila, winner, winner, chicken dinner. Thanks for watching, guys. Sorry, I forgot one more thing. One of the things that I'm sure I've read about somewhere, compound lifts do all kinds of wonderful things. So squats and deadlifts, cure cancer, fix the economy, and end wars. You think I'm wrong? You got to prove it. Do lots and lots of squats and deadlifts, and let's see what happens.